All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started today. Sorry about missing on Thursday night. We're going to go ahead and get started with our meeting today, our session for looking forward. So, want to wish everybody a good Sunday. Welcome to Looking Forward Live in our Faith, Feelings, and Mental Health series. Today, our topic is Boundaries Are Not Unchristian, Learning to Love Without Losing Yourself. This topic matters because people, I would say many people, were taught that love means having no limits. Saying yes is always spiritual, and saying no is selfish. This is oftentimes what we're taught. Today, I want to offer a healthier way of seeing it. Boundaries are not the opposite of Christian love. Healthy boundaries often make love more honest, sustainable, and wise. Now, as always, we want to give a disclaimer and a safety before we begin. I want to make our purpose clear of these sessions. This session is for general psychoeducation and community support. It's not therapy, counseling, diagnosis, or crisis intervention. Please don't share private or identifying personal information in the comments. But of course, we want you to share comments or maybe questions you have in the comments below or send us an email. But we want this to be a safe and respectful space. And again, we'll tell you that if you're in crisis or you're thinking about harming yourself or someone else, call 988 or 911 or go to the nearest emergency room. Okay. So, that being said, let's go ahead and get started with today's session. Why boundaries matter. This conversation matters because many people confuse love with self erasure. They believe being Christian means never disappointing anyone, but constant availability can become resentment. Saying yes to everything can become dishonesty. Ignoring our limits can eventually damage relationships. Healthy boundaries are not a rejection of love, they are a structure that helps love remain honest, sustainable, and wise. Okay? A boundary is not a rejection of love. Again, it is a structure that helps love stay honest. What boundaries are? So here's a clear statement of what mine is to carry and what is not. A boundary is a clear statement of what is mine, what's mine to carry, and what it's not. So boundaries involve limits. So first, let's talk about limits. What's limits? What I can give, do, tolerate, or participate in without losing health or integrity. Secondly, boundaries involve ownership. Ownership is about my choices, my body, my time, my yes or my no, and my responsibility. Thirdly, boundaries also create clarity. What others can expect from me and what I can no longer pretend is okay. They help others and other people know what they can expect from us. So it gives clarity to you and to others. It sets expectations. So boundaries help us separate connection from control. That's why they're so vital and extremely important to all of us. Now, what boundaries are not? Let's clear up some common misunderstandings about what boundaries are not. Boundaries are often misunderstood. A boundary is not a punishment. A boundary is not selfishness. A boundary is not unforgiveness. It's not about revenge. And a boundary is not a refusal to love. What boundaries are clarity, it's stewardship. Boundaries are wisdom. Boundaries are about honesty. And ultimately, boundaries are a way to love without losing yourself. So the question is not how do I avoid people? It is how do I love with truth and health? Now, what does this mean for us if we try to integrate our faith into this conversation? We can talk about the psychology of it. We can also talk about the faith perspective. So, as far as our faith integration into this conversation, we can look at the fact that Jesus deeply loved, but he also lived with limits. So, from a faith perspective, it's important to remember this that Jesus did love very deeply, but he also had his limits. He withdrew to pray and rest. We see many stories in the Gospels where Jesus prays and rests and he withdraws himself in order to do so. Jesus did not heal everyone in every town. Sometimes we puzzle at this, and there's lots of layers of meaning here that let us know that not every situation n- was treated exactly the same. Jesus disappointed people without abandoning his calling. Again, Jesus didn't do the same thing in every place to every people. But again, this doesn't mean he abandoned who he was or his calling. Jesus asked clear questions and named truth directly. And then finally, Jesus carried the Father's will, not everyone else's expectations. You had all these expectations of what a Messiah should be and what Jesus should be doing. His own disciples were very aggravated at times because when he would speak in parables, the disciples said, "Why can't you just speak clearly? Why do you have to use this veiled language? Why do you have to use parables to teach these deep truths?" But oftentimes, again, Jesus did these things for a specific reason. And again, it's not to meet everyone else's expectations, but he had a true sense of his own calling and what he was supposed to be doing. So, what we can learn from this is that love does not require unlimited access to you. Now, let me say this again. Love does not require unlimited access to you. Even Jesus lived with rhythm, priority, and discernment. Because again, if you're giving everyone unlimited access to yourself, then oftentimes that leads to resentment and anger, and you leads to strained relationships. But you can see even Jesus himself gives an example of one who lived within a certain rhythm that was balanced out with his own priorities and need for discerning when to act or what to do in various situations. So not every situation is treated the same. So again, you can take any part of the life of Jesus or his teachings and you can apply it in so many different ways. But one thing we can learn from this is that it's okay for you to have priorities. Love doesn't require you to just open yourself up for people to have unlimited access to you and what you can do. Now let's talk about the psychology of boundaries. There's a differentiation here, or differentiation, if I can speak. It's connection without confusion. This is what helps. Different 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 differentiation. If I can speak today, I apologize for that. Means staying connected while remaining yourself. Differentiation, if I can say it, means this. Um, it means I can be connected without being controlled. I can love someone without taking responsibility for every feeling. It means I can listen without absorbing everything. You don't have to internalize everything someone tells you, or they get to tell you their story about how their life is falling apart and their emotions are all over the place. You can listen to someone and empathize with them without internalizing all of their suffering or their circumstances. It means you can care without rescuing somebody. You can have empathy and grace and love for somebody without having to just rescue someone. Now, there's different circumstances here. If someone is being physically abused or threatened, there's times to step in or call the authorities or get the law involved. There's nothing unchristian about that. Uh, when you truly care about somebody. Now, again, that doesn't mean in every situation you have to rescue somebody. Sometimes decisions have to be made. And ultimately, I can say no and still be compassionate. As I said, you can set priorities for what you can be involved with without getting sucked into uh, the instability of somebody else's life. That doesn't mean you're not being Christian or not being loving. You can still say no and still be compassionate. That's what having boundaries is about. It protects you and protects others. And again, it can build relationships where oftentimes giving someone unlimited access to yourself actually can destroy and poison relationships. So, differentiation means staying connected. You could be connected while remaining yourself. So, that's very important. The goal here is not to create distance. So, again, um, you can care about another person's pain without becoming responsible for every feeling or every outcome. The goal here is not distance. The goal is to achieve clarity. Now let's talk about how your body often knows. Your body knows what's going on sometimes before your mind can catch up. So the nervous system notices crossed boundaries. There's body signs. The body often knows when a boundary has been crossed before the mind is ready to even admit it. We may feel tension. Our body can feel tension. It can feel fatigue. You can have a headache. Your stomach can be turning in knots. Now, your mind can often have racing thoughts or resentment or confusion, or you can have thoughts of dread. The relationship, and within relationships, there can be avoidance, or they can be people pleasing. There can be anger, or there could be a time where you just shut down. Now, spiritually, we may feel guilt. As from a faith perspective, we could feel guilt, fear of being selfish. We could have pressure put on us. Oftentimes, if you're in a church or a faith community, you can feel pressure to forgive somebody or get involved with things that your body and your mind is telling you you don't need to be involved with this because you have that pressure of, oh, you have to because that's what Christians do. Or you could experience a loss of peace. This doesn't mean every uncomfortable feeling proves a boundary was crossed, but it does mean we should listen with curiosity. So the question here is, what does my body tell me before I finally admit that I need a boundary? Because again, your body, your nervous system catches all of this before you can even rationalize it, or your mind can process what has just happened when someone has crossed a boundary. Now, let's talk about types of boundaries. So there's healthy limits that often show up in many areas of our lives. Let's talk about a time boundary. A time boundary may sound like I'm not available tonight. Somebody may be needing your availability, but as we said, you don't have to have unlimited access or give other people unlimited access to your time. You can say, hey, I'm not available tonight. That's okay. An emotional boundary may sound like this: I can listen, but I cannot be yelled at. That's another boundary. A physical boundary can be, I need my personal space. Someone doesn't have to invade your bubble or come in and touch you or hug you up or make you feel uncomfortable. You might just need your personal space away from someone. Again, you can listen without being yelled at or without being touched. I talk about a spiritual boundary. You could say, I need room to discern this honestly. I need room to think about this, think about how this fits in to my faith. Relationally, it may look like this: I'll continue when we can speak respectfully to each other. So again, it's okay to set that boundary of, let's be respectful to each other, and instead of again saying hurtful words. Digitally, we could say, I don't respond to messages after 9 p.m. So, with all the social media these days, or texting, or emails, or any number of endless ways that people can contact you digitally, it's okay to say, hey, I can listen to you, but I can't do this after 9 p.m. I got to get sleep, or I got to take care of the kids, or, I've got to do things to get ready for myself. Again, set priorities. There's nothing wrong with that. Boundaries become easier when we make them concrete and we don't make them so vague. So that's why it's important to set clarity to understand. Guilt, shame, and pressure. Boundaries are hard because guilt, shame, and pressure often show up. Good Christians always say yes, is what we're told. Their reaction is your responsibility, is what we're often told. But wisdom says this: good wisdom says limits protect love. Again, you can see here on the screen, pressure often says you're selfish, you're letting people down. Good Christians have to always say yes. And the way they react to you, well, that's your responsibility. But that's not necessarily true. The wisdom lets us know that limits, boundaries protect love. My worth is not earned by overgiving. So that's why I say you don't have to give someone unlimited access to yourself for that to be love. That can be in any kind of relationship. That can be in marriage. That can be with your kids. That can be with your parents, with in laws, with your friends, whoever. Giving people unlimited access to yourself doesn't really help anyone. It creates all sorts of problems. And again, your worth is not earned by you just over giving or giving limitless access to you. And honestly, compassion needs truth. Compassion needs honesty. Compassion requires clarity. And again, I can be kind and be clear. So someone else's disappointment does not automatically mean that we've done something wrong. Now let's talk about boundary sentence starters. There's some simple language for clear and kind limits. Boundaries often fail when we wait until we're overwhelmed or angry or exhausted before trying to speak. So that's why these sentence starters help us stay clear and kind. Clear does not have to be cruel, and kind does not have to be vague. We can say things like, I care about you, but I'm not able to do that. We could say things like, I need some time to think before I answer. We can say, I can talk about this when we're both calm. I'm not available for that conversation right now. You can say, I understand you're upset, but I'm not going to be yelled at. And I will not be yelled at. And then finally, My no is not rejection, it's just honesty. So remember again, clear does not have to be cruel and kind does not have to be vague, but you can still be assertive in setting your boundaries. Okay, so I try to give you a tool each time we have a session. Here's a good tool for us. And again, we love the acrostic tool. And this one for this week, we call the SAFE tool. I want to offer just this simple tool using the word safe. So the S means slow down. Don't answer from panic or pressure or fear. Step two, the A is assess responsibility. What is mine and what belongs to someone else? You may have a responsibility in this, but also remember the other person has a responsibility to deal with this as well. F. F means form the boundary, which that means name the limit clearly and kindly. We don't have to shout it, but if you don't set boundaries clearly and set those expectations, then it may turn into a shouting match. E is expect discomfort. Guilt may show up. Discomfort does not mean the boundary is wrong. Okay. Discomfort does not automatically mean the boundary is wrong just because you feel uncomfortable setting the boundary. But again, it's important to set the boundary. So remember this tool's safe. Slow down, assess the responsibility. What's yours? What's the other person's responsibility? F, form the boundary, which means name this limit clearly, distinctly, and kindly. And then finally, expect some discomfort because in being honest, honesty requires some discomfort. Honesty is going to cause some discomfort. Guilt may show up, but that's okay. You've got to set the boundary and the expectations. So, what do we do when a boundary is challenged? What do we do? We can stay steady without escalating. So, when a boundary is challenged, sometimes a boundary will be challenged. That doesn't mean the boundary is wrong. It may mean the other person is used to having unlimited access to your time, to your emotions, or your energy. So, again, let's say this clearly. When a boundary is challenged, and it will be challenged at times, that doesn't mean the boundary is wrong. This could just mean the other person is used to having unlimited access to you, to your time, to your emotions, or to your energy. What do? We stay steady without escalating. So repeat the boundary calmly. This is how we can do it. You can say no or repeat the boundary or just say, hey, I can talk about this, but not right now or not today. I can talk to you tomorrow. I can talk to you tomorrow at lunch, or I can talk to you when we have coffee. Don't over explain to someone committed to misunderstanding. You don't have to over explain yourself. Somebody may ask you all sorts of questions and want to know all this other stuff. You don't have to over explain it. You just have to say, this is the way it is. This is the way it has to be. All right. Separate their reaction from your responsibility. Again, you're not responsible for all the emotions the other person is feeling. Separate their reaction from your responsibility. Make that clear and understand what your responsibility is and theirs. You can also use fewer words when pressured or when pressure increases because oftentimes they're wanting the access to you and you're saying no. And again, this is why they're throwing everything they've got at you. It's okay to use fewer words and just uh, de-escalate the situation. So this is the way it has to be. And then you can leave or pause the conversation if it becomes unsafe or degrading. Because believe you me, I've been in those situations where I've had people cussing at me or telling me what an awful person I am. They go from loving you and thinking you're the best person in the world and there's nobody like you and nobody listens like you. You're so wonderful and great, to when you anger them because you set a boundary, then you become the biggest jackass in the world. And believe me, it happens. But it's okay to leave or pause the conversation, especially when it becomes unsafe or they become degrading. So remember, a boundary is only real when it's paired with follow through. That means you have to set in action the boundary that you've set. If you set a boundary and you still give somebody unlimited access to your time, emotions, and energy, it's not going to stick. And you're not going to get what you need out of this, which is to make a more positive relationship out of the situation. It's going to escalate. What if someone gets angry? Surely if we've lived long enough at all, or we've had any number of relationships with either our spouse or our parents or kids or friends, or if you're a pastor and you've had these good relationships with congregants, and uh, they want to come at you with every problem in the world that they have, and you're not willing to give them unlimited access to yourself. Sometimes they get angry, and discomfort's not always harm. So you might feel guilt or you might be aggravated yourself, but just because you have discomfort doesn't mean that there's harm to the relationship. It just means that there's high emotions going on. So remember that their anger may be real, but it's not automatically your assignment. That doesn't mean because they're angry that you've got to solve the problem right then. You can listen without surrendering your limit. You can also listen to them without surrendering your boundary. You can apologize for harshness without removing the boundary. If you're aggravated too, and you can say, "Look, we don't need to talk right now. We're both angry." You can do that without removing the boundary. The boundary is still there. You can. And here's an important one. You can be compassionate without becoming controlled. Sometimes what they're looking for is a way to control the situation and to control the boundary because you set the boundary. They're angry, and because you're a compassionate person, they're still wanting to control the situation, but you have to stick to your guns. You have to stick to the boundary or it will not work. And remember this clearly here. This is vital. Safety matters. Abuse, threats, or intimidation require support. If it gets so bad that there's physical abuse or physical threats or harm, or you believe you might be harmed, it's okay. It doesn't mean it's unchristian if you have to involve the law or involve somebody else that can step in and help with the situation. Christian peace is not pretending that nothing is wrong. It is truth held with compassion. Okay. So again, you can apologize if your tone is harsh without removing the boundary. But again, if there's abuse, threats, or intimidation, or safety is paramount. So get the right support, the appropriate support that's needed if it gets out of hand. All right. Here's our questions for reflection for this session. And I would ask you if you want to share some questions or you've got some comments you want to put into the comments section or email me, then let me know. But I just want to ask these as we think about what we just talked about. It's a lot to think about, but some really good things. So here's a few questions to think about, and you can respond generally. You can just think about it through the week. And again, I'd love to hear from you. I appreciate some of you emailing and sending me comments or sending your comments through Messenger. I'd encourage you to do that. But think about this: where am I confusing love with over functioning? What boundary does my body already know that I need. Because again, your nervous system already knows something's happening before your mind can even process it, before you can even think about it. Your nervous system's letting you know something's going on. That's why you feel anxious or your stomach's churning. Or if you see someone out in the store or at church or wherever, then you're already upset because you know something's going, your body knows something's going on. What do I fear will happen if I say no? This is a good one. Are you afraid this person is just going to blow up? Are you afraid this person is just never going to say hi to you again? Or just or is going to go and talk about you to other people? Fourthly, where do I need truth and compassion together? And this is tough because again, oftentimes we're told Christians should always just give of themselves with no limit and limitless love and compassion. And, all that stuff sounds really good, but we're all human beings and we're not made that way. You're not, as much as we want to be like Jesus, let me just be honest with you today, you're not Jesus. You're a human being. That's okay. Uh, the teachings of Jesus are things for us to strive for, to to aspire to be. But if you think you can do all this and do it just like Jesus, then you're living a delusion. You're not going to be able to do this in the way that you think you're going to, because you are a human being and you have these environmental pressures, you have uh, mental health pressures, you have societal, relationship, work, all these other pressures on you that again, time and time again, show you how human you are. And you think, how in the world could I think these thoughts? How in the world could I have acted that way? How in the world could I have cussed this person when I didn't mean to? Or how could I have treated this person? Guess what? We're all human beings. And that's why we all need grace. So the same grace that you're trying to give out and show, it's okay to turn it on yourself and say, that's okay. And the final question here is, what is one small safe step that you can practice this week? So go back and re-listen to the tool I gave you where again, go through that. It's very helpful for you to assess what it is to set boundaries. Okay. Again, I hope this is helpful for you and to show you that you can be a Jesus loving Christian and practice your faith. But that doesn't mean people have unlimited access to you, your energy, your life. Setting boundaries will help in so many different ways. So here's our closing prayer as we close out our session today. And I hope this has been something that you can find helpful. Listen to it again, share it with other people who you feel like may need a lesson in the fact that boundaries are not unchristian, that boundaries are helpful in any relationship. And again, these sessions are just to help give community awareness, and would be more than glad to help you anytime here. Looking forward, counseling here in Rogersville. We, of course, help you on the Zoom session. We can help you in person. If you just need some encouragement, drop us a line. As we close out today, I hope that we can love with wisdom, we can speak with kindness, but more importantly, we can walk in freedom. So, God of grace, teach us to love without disappearing, to serve without resentment, to speak truth without cruelty. Give us wisdom to know what is ours to carry and what belongs to someone else. Help us to walk in compassion, courage, and peace. We ask these things in Christ's name. Amen. So glad that each of you have been on. Share this. Let us know how we can help, and look forward, of course, to our next session. I hope you have a great week, and let us know how we can help. Thank you.